Hey guys, it's Paul, and I'm here to tell you that this week's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Parabox Monthly. You can head to paraboxmonthly.com to sign up for just $19.95, and you'll receive your first box next month. Your box will include an awesome soft style quality t-shirt with some sort of paranormal or supernatural theme. It'll also enter you into an online scavenger hunt. If you can solve the mysteries included within the box and on the t-shirt, you might be able to find your way to the end of the scavenger hunt and qualify for more free gear from Parabox. I also want to tell you to join Parabox Society. They just launched Parabox Society on Facebook, and if you search Parabox Society, you'll find the group page, and you can join, and you can, join in on all the cool paranormal discussion. All right, that's it, guys. We want to thank you. We want to thank Parabox. We want to thank Ghosts. Enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Goose Pimples
podcast.
It is Monday, right? It's Monday?
Kind of.
And you know what that means? That means it's time for us to bring you a creepy, chilling
story.
Thanks, Eric. I am Paul Breeden, and I am joined by my wonderful cousin,
Eric Arterbridge.
And we're here to delve into the creepy and skin-crawling stories that keep you up at night. It's a rough one, Eric. Already, it's a rough one.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a good episode because I have prepared an episode on a topic that, since I was a little kid, has given me the willies. I saw, Eric, a television program when I was, I'm going to guess, I was probably like 9 or 10. And it was one of those like unsolved mysteries television programs, right?
Was it Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah. It wasn't Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh.
It was one of those shows, but this one was like themed, where all the stories kind of had the same tie-in.
Okay.
And I don't want to give it away yet, but the tie-in was the topic of today's episode. The people at home already know what it is because they clicked the link to listen to the show, but you have no idea.
Uh-oh. I'm curious.
Okay, Eric, well, let's get right into it. Did anything interesting happen? Anything you want to share?
No.
Okay, good. Let's talk about a man who lived in 1641, and he went by the name Paulinus Vorstius.
Interesting. Where did he live?
Italy. He was an Italian knight.
Oh, wonderful.
And one day, while Paulinus was spending the day at his childhood home in Milan with his parents, enjoying a glass of wine, something strange happened, Eric. Something strange and tragic.
What happened?
Paulinus burped.
What?
He belched.
Oh, I thought you said burnt.
Well,
like caught on fire.
Well, it's funny you should say that because Paulinus burped, and when he burped, fire came out.
Ew.
And then
he must have eaten some flaming hot Cheetos.
That's probably what it was. Paulinus was actually then engulfed in flames.
Oh no!
And died in his parents' home in Milan. And according to a Danish doctor and mathematician named Thomas Bartholin, this is the first recognized case of the bizarre phenomenon known as spontaneous human combustion.
Ooh, that sounds terrible.
Are you familiar? Have you heard of spontaneous human combustion before, Eric?
Well, I've heard of like spontaneous combustion. I guess I didn't realize it was happening to humans out of nowhere.
So I saw the show that I was talking about, where the whole thing was themed people who have spontaneously combusted, and it was all these stories of people who they just burst into flames.
That's crazy. How does that happen?
I don't know. Well, okay. So what is spontaneous human combustion? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is when a human spontaneously, without any outside ignition source, bursts into flames.
Ooh, that sounds terrible.
And one of the most famous cases of this occurrence, and it's famous because there's a pretty popular picture that goes around the internet of the aftermath, was a 92-year-old doctor named J. Irving Bentley.
What happened to him?
The doctor was discovered in his Pennsylvania home in 1966 by a meter man. And there wasn't a lot left of him, Eric.
Uh-oh.
The meter man found Dr. Bentley's leg, the foot still in the slipper, and that is about it. Everything else was gone.
That's like that guy from the last podcast where they found his toe bones in the sock.
Yeah, maybe he spontaneously combusted.
I forget what actually happened to him.
Well, nobody knows what actually happened to him. But I'll tell you, an interesting thing is that a lot of times when people spontaneously combust, pieces of their clothing remain untouched, like unharmed.
How can that possibly be?
Well, we're going to get to it. There's some theories on how that could possibly be.
Okay.
But let's get back to Dr. Bentley. So Dr. Bentley is... he's discovered by the meter man, and all that's left of him is his foot. Well, his leg and foot, which is still in the slipper. The rest of him is a pile of ashes.
Damn.
Yeah, the rest of his body was gone. It was a pile of ashes in the bathroom in front of the toilet.
He was sitting on the toilet when it happened?
He was sitting on the toilet. And the burned floor in front of the toilet seems to be the only signs that there was even a fire. The rest of the bathroom, the rest of the house is perfectly intact.
Listen, I gotta say, there have been times I've been sitting on the toilet and it felt like a part of me was on fire, but it wasn't. So I gotta...
Oh, yeah, after the Thai food, is that what did you in?
No. Thai food is usually okay. It's usually the Taco Bell, though.
Taco Bell? Well, that's no good. You eat that every day.
At least.
So, Eric, you want to see a picture of Dr. J. Irving Bentley?
Yeah, send it on over.
I'm going to send it to Eric, and as always, all the pictures we talk about on this show will be available at goosepimple.podcast.com.
Thank you.
Here you go, Eric. This is Dr. Irving. You got it?
Not yet, because, Paul, I have a piece of shit computer.
Okay, well, I sent it. It's in the gallery. I like this new Skype setup. Is kind of cool.
I don't even have a new Skype setup.
Oh, really?
Sure that it went. I don't think it went through.
I don't know.
The gallery.
I have a gallery now, Eric.
I don't have a gallery. I've gotten no pictures.
Well, let me see. Can I send it in the chat still?
Yeah, send it in the chat.
Oh, Eric, you got to get the new Skype. Okay, here's Dr. Bentley. There we go.
Okay, hold up. Let me click it. Hold on, I gotta download it. Let's download it. Image transfer complete. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hold on, it's opening.
Okay. So Dr. Bentley.
I see his Paul. I see his leg, and I see the toilet.
Yep. And it looks like maybe a walker. Yeah, that's what I think. Maybe he was taking a whiz when it happened.
That's a shame. Oh, it must have been coming out too fast. Started too much friction.
So
fire.
Maybe that was the ignition. But as far as the investigators can tell, there was no sign of spark and no sign of ignition. And this, Eric, was one of hundreds of cases that have been labeled spontaneous human combustion.
Now that's crazy.
Yes, it is. And as chilling and unusual as the case of Dr. Bentley is, some reports are even more bizarre. Because it's not uncommon, like I said, for victims to burn to death, leaving their clothing and the surroundings seemingly fine. You want to hear about one of those stories?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in ironic twist, we are going to be talking about New York firefighter George Mott. Now, Eric, this guy George Mott, according to his best friend, they were sitting around in his apartment one night, and they were watching the show The Twilight Zone. Familiar?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Wait a second. You've only heard of The Twilight Zone? You've never watched it?
No, I think I've seen a few episodes when I was a kid, but I wasn't a regular watcher.
You have some serious gaps in your knowledge, Eric.
You have gaps in your knowledge.
Well, good news for you. All the Twilight Zone episodes are on Netflix, and you can watch them for whatever Netflix costs. I don't know.
I have my cousin's Netflix, my cousin Corey.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. So they're watching the Twilight Zone, and according to his buddy, at one point, George says, nothing weird like this ever happens to me. I kind of wish it would. Eric, guess what? George got his wish.
Oh, damn.
A few days later, George's son was stopping by for a visit, and when he arrived, he sensed something was off. He took notice of the house's windows. They all seemed to be brown. Yeah. Then as he reached to enter the front door, he realized that the doorknob was unusually warm. A little too warm.
Oh, no.
Inside, he was met with a horrifying sight. His father, George Mott, had been reduced to a pile of ashes in his bed.
Oh, God, it probably smelled bad, too.
Yeah, that's actually another common theme with spontaneous combustion. Apparently, the odor that it leaves behind is very, very pungent.
Well, yeah, I mean, regardless of the source of the combustion, I'm sure that human flesh burning isn't pleasant.
Yeah, and if the doorknob was warm, he must have missed it by just a couple of minutes there.
It must have been fresh.
So all that remained of George was one of his ribs and his skull, which had been shrunken.
What?
Now, this is another thing that's happened multiple times in multiple cases of spontaneous combustion, is the skull actually shrinks. I don't know if that's something that happens just due to like crazy high temperatures, because as we'll find out later, the temperatures estimated in these spontaneous combustions are through the roof.
That's crazy.
One of the most bizarre parts about the George Mott story is that George slept with an oxygen tank. Now, on this night, George didn't use the oxygen tank. I guess he had fallen asleep without using it. But it was located next to his bed. And Eric, I don't know if you know much about science, but oxygen is highly flammable.
Yeah, I know. Every time I go to my grandmother's house, she's always yelling at everybody, "Don't smoke in the bedroom. I got oxygen out here."
Well, George had oxygen too, and he burned to a crisp, and the tank was perfectly fine. You know what else was perfectly fine?
The bed.
A pack of matches that he had sitting next to the bed.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, not one of them had ignited.
What the hell is going on here?
I don't know, but you want to hear some theories as to what may be the cause of these spontaneous combustions?
Yeah, I would love to hear.
Okay. So it's kind of a perplexing subject, Eric.
Tell me about
The
it.
human body would need two things in order to burst into flames: an insanely high heat source and a flammable substance. Mm-hmm. For the most part, the human body contains neither of these things. In fact, again, back to the science, I'm a science whiz. The human body is almost 80% water.
Yeah.
Water is not flammable.
That's right.
Now, that's not to say that the human body can't burn. Obviously, that's not the case because people are cremated every day. But the idea of a body lighting itself on fire and somehow igniting itself and then burning to a pile of ashes is, well, it's to say the least, a long shot.
Yeah. But it's happening, apparently.
It's happening. It has happened. They did some research, and there seem to be several common characteristics when it comes to spontaneous human combustion cases. You want to hear what the characteristics are?
Yeah.
Okay, now listen. When I was going over these characteristics, I immediately thought that. Well, let's see. So here we go. The victims are typically elderly females. The victims, typically, their hands and feet fall off.
Ew.
Yeah, their hands and feet don't burn. The fire causes very little damage to combustible things in contact with the body. And last, and this is probably the most important thing, the victims are usually chronic alcoholics.
Oh, no.
Alcohol, as you know, Eric, is flammable, right?
Yeah.
So this seems to be a key factor. It was brought into focus by an unlikely source. One of the most popular mentions of human combustion was made in the 1800s by a man named Charles Dickens. Have you heard of him?
I've heard of him.
Okay, Charles Dickens wrote a book, and the book was called Bleak House. And in the book, one of the characters, a guy named Crook, ends up dying from spontaneous human combustion. And in the book, it said that the cause of this was Crook's excessive consumption of alcohol. That seemed to be his downfall and what led to the spontaneous human combustion. So it kind of makes sense, right? If you are constantly drinking hard liquor and it's getting into your bloodstream, I guess your flammability would go up, right?
I guess so.
So,
I mean, it must have been common enough for him to include it in a book back then, right?
see, I don't know. This isn't really a common thing. And we'll talk about that later, too. Like, it happens, and it has... But the funny thing is there's no scientific proof that it happens. Like, it happened... Like, people find these bodies and go, I guess it was spontaneous combustion. There's no other reason for this body to be like this. But there's no, like, scientific theory as to how it happens. These are kind of... I mean... I guess they're scientific theories, but they're not proven by science, you know?
Yeah.
So some people say that the ignition comes as a result of static electricity building up inside the human body. I mean, that, I don't know. Can that happen?
I have no idea.
I guess if you drank a shitload of alcohol and a big enough static charge built up inside your body, if that was something that could happen, then I could see maybe. There's another guy. He's a self-proclaimed spontaneous human combustion expert, and his name is Larry Arnold. And he suggests that the bizarre phenomenon is caused by a little-known subatomic particle called the pyroton.
What is this guy's credentials?
Well, I don't know, but I do know...
Aside from being a self-proclaimed self-combustion specialist.
Spontaneous combustion specialist.
Yeah, spontaneous combustion specialist.
I don't know what this guy's credentials are. I do know, as a footnote, science does not recognize the pyroton as a real thing. This is something that Larry Arnold has discovered and is pushing. But he believes that this pyroton is a subatomic particle that interacts with some cells to produce mini explosions within the body.
Ew.
Another theory is that methane gases build up in the intestines. Methane is produced when plants decompose, and the theory claims that the methane is ignited by enzymes as they cause chemical reactions within the body. Now that I could see. You know, if you eat a lot of vegetables, they would decompose in your stomach, right?
I guess, but I mean, everybody eats vegetables, and not everybody
not
is
me.
combusting. That's true.
So, yeah, it's weird. The methane thing, I don't know. A lot of victims do report that the spontaneous combustion starts as a severe burning in the stomach chest area. So...
Wait, how do we know that? Did you ask them before?
People have lived, Eric.
What?
Yeah, people have spontaneously combusted and lived.
All right, let's hear about them.
We will hear about them. But
okay, great.
But the problem with the methane theory is that afterwards, when people are found, there tends to be much more damage to the exterior of the body rather than the interior. So if the fire was starting on the inside due to methane gases, you figure you'd have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. As of today, like I said, there is no scientifically proven theory explaining spontaneous human combustion. There is, however, a theory as to why so many victims are found burned while their clothes and surroundings are fine. It's called the wick effect, Eric.
What's that?
Okay, so... How can I put this so that your tender little ears will understand it? Have you heard of a candle?
I have, yes.
You've heard of candles. Okay. So a candle is composed of a wick in the center, surrounded by a wax, which is usually made of a flammable fatty acid.
Oh.
The wick doesn't simply burn away like a normal rope or string would. Instead, the wax surrounds the wick and burns away very slowly, keeping the wick burning for long periods of time.
Yeah, that's right.
So in the wick theory, the body fat of the human acts as the wax or the fatty flammable substance, while the clothing acts as the wick.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like an inside-out candle. So the theory is that the body fat slowly melts away as the body burns, It then soaks into the clothing and acts like a wax, keeping the clothing burning very slowly. Once the fat from the body burns away, the fire loses its fuel, and the source cannot... the body will lose it... Once the fat from the body burns away, the fire will lose its fuel source and cannot spread anymore because of the wax/fat-soaked clothing.
Ew.
So that's the idea behind. Do you get it? Do you understand? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So basically the clothing is kind of stopping the fire from spreading and burning down the whole house or destroying items around.
But I mean, if you're laying in a bed like this last guy was, and your clothes are on fire... Wait, are your clothes... Is it saying that your skin is on fire?
No, what it's saying is that basically your body burns inside of your clothes, and as it does, your fat melts, and the clothing absorbs that melted fat.
And it acts like a barrier between the fire and the environment.
Yes, because then it almost protects the clothing from burning away. Like the clothing still burns, but it burns more like a wick of a candle. Very slowly.
Okay, but so let's go back to this guy that was found in the bed with the shrunken skull.
George Mott.
Yeah, so if his head must have been on fire in order to have just a skull that's been shrunk.
Yes, actually, they believe that hair acts as a wick as well. The hair would absorb the burning flesh.
Wow.
But the problem is, I mean, even if this theory is correct, and it quite certainly could be correct, there's still no reason that somebody would burst into flames. Like, where's the ignition source?
Well, I'm trying to say, let's say that that's a given, that they're bursting into flames out of nowhere. Why didn't anything else in the room catch on fire? And I'm trying to figure out if this theory makes sense or not.
Well, no, it's not that things don't catch on fire. Like, I don't know if there's any pictures of the George Mott incident, but I'm assuming, like, a lot of times the ground, directly below, or, if they're sitting in a chair, a lot of times the fabric on the chair will be burned.
Hear you.
What do you mean you can't hear me?
It got jacked up.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now? Okay.
So just start over what you were saying.
So it's not that the body burns and there's no damage to anything other than the body. Like, a lot of times if they're in a bed or they're sitting on a chair,
or on a toilet,
the bed itself or the top of the chair will be burned as well.
What about the toilet seat?
But the question is why doesn't the fire continue to spread? If the chair were to light on fire, why wouldn't the chair then burn to the carpet, and then the carpet set the drapes, and the whole house burned down?
Right. I can speak from experience. Beds catch right on fire.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
And that's the theory, is that it's basically the body melting and turning itself into a wax, and then kind of containing the fire itself.
Oh God, it gives me chills to think about the smell.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Okay, well, here's the other question, right? If these people are setting a fire and their whole bodies are burning away, why, in almost all cases, are the hands and feet left?
I don't know.
Why is it that the whole body would burn, but the hands and feet would remain, perfectly fine, to the point where they're still wearing slippers?
I think there must be a demon involved.
You think it's demonic?
Yeah.
Well,
like
no.
A demonic possession.
It's not. This one part of the story can be explained by science pretty easily. Okay. So science refers to this as a temperature gradient, right? And the easiest way to understand this is to think of a match. So, Eric, if you light a match and you hold it completely vertically, right? Like perfectly up and down. In most cases, the match will put itself out, right?
That's true.
And this is because the bottom of the match becomes much cooler than the top. And they think this is what's happening with the hands and feet. Basically, they think the fire is burning itself out because the hands and feet are cooler.
Oh, they must have bad circulation. That's why they have cold hands and feet.
Maybe. Well, they're usually older people, so.
Older alcoholics. It all makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing that's very strange is the rate of how quickly these bodies burn. So typically, For a body to be cremated and reduced to nothing but ashes, it takes hours, right?
Okay.
This was not the case when it came to Helen Conway of Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. This is too from Pennsylvania. I mean, this is something's up in Pennsylvania.
It's probably
Maybe
the water.
Yeah, it's in the water. It's all the
tap water.
It's all the natural gas pipelines running through the place.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Fracking.
So, on November 7th, 1964,
what happened?
Helen Conway was babysitting her great-grandchildren. Stephanie, Helen's great-granddaughter, remembers bringing her a pack of matches at exactly 8:42. It said moments. Really, it must have been seconds later. Helen's neighbor, who was on her way to church, noticed a strange glow in the upstairs window and came to the house to investigate. By the time she got there, the fire was burning so hot that they weren't able to access the room that Helen was in.
Damn.
They called the fire company, and the firefighters arrived at 8:48. So Stephanie took the matches to Helen at 8:42. The firefighters arrived on the scene at 8:48. Can you do the math on that one?
That's at least 5 minutes.
It's 6 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
So that's only 6 minutes after the matches had been delivered to Helen. And in just that small amount of time, the fire had subsided, so the fire completely burned itself out.
Damn.
And as the firefighters searched the smoke-filled room, one of them stuck their hand into what he described as something greasy.
Oh, no.
This is the remains of Helen Conway.
That's so foul.
Nothing was left of Helen but her legs up to the knee. I have a picture of Helen.
So just to be clear, he saw legs from the knee down at the bottom of a puddle of goo and decided to stick his hand in it.
Well, the room was filled with smoke at the time. So, I mean, maybe he didn't see it. I'm sure this picture was taken after the smoke cleared.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so the goo, the something greasy, Eric, do you want to take a stab in the dark as to what that is? It's the remaining melted body fat.
Paul, it's the remaining melted body fat. I'm trying to pull up the picture. You know that this computer takes forever.
Oh, sorry.
Ew, I see the picture now. I see her legs and her feet. And it looks like, what was she sitting in a chair?
She was sitting in a chair, yeah. See what I mean? The chair is burned, and the wall behind it has smoke damage. But,
yeah,
you know, if you would just set a chair on fire,
yeah,
you know, that fire is going to spread from the chair to the rug that's under her, and then it's going to go up that wooden table that's next to her, and then it's going to catch the walls on fire.
Damn.
And that doesn't happen in these cases. It doesn't happen in spontaneous human combustion.
But see, this is where I'm going back to the fireman who stuck his hand into the puddle of grease above the legs.
Well, maybe he saw... Maybe
so nasty. What's this?
Maybe the smoke was starting to clear, and he saw the legs and thought, oh, no, there's a person. I better go help them. And then, when he went over... I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's just curious and wanted to poke around and see what was going on.
No, if I saw a couple of legs,
okay,
no body, I'd get out of DA.
This part is kind of hard to listen to, but nothing was left but the legs, obviously. And the legs were unburnt, but they were blistered. Some of these blisters broke during the postmortem investigation. Now, apparently, if a blister pops and the inside is wet, but not fluid-filled, like any blister that pops, it's going to be damp on the inside. But if a blister festers for a while, it fills with fluid, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, because it was just wet and there was no fluid inside, this was a clear indication that Helen was alive as she burned.
Damn.
So, it was a tough way to go for Helen Conway. The authorities believe that the fire that consumed Helen must have burned at least 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Damn.
The fire ended in less than 6 minutes. And for a fire to do this amount of damage in that amount of time, accelerants would have had to have been used, and none were found.
But how can this be?
I don't know. And they didn't know either. Actually, Helen's death was originally considered a foul play case due to the rate and intensity of the fire. But in the end, it was proclaimed a spontaneous human combustion.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen to me.
Well, me too. And that's what I said when I first watched this. I was like 10 or 11, watching it. I remember watching it at my grandmother's house, and that's all I could think was like, I'm going to burst into flames at any minute. any tingle I'd get in my arm or like my leg, I'd immediately start like rubbing it, trying to make sure I wasn't going to go up in flames.
Well, rubbing it is just adding more friction.
I know. Well, I wasn't as versed in Scientology back then.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now, like I said, believe it or not, there is something more bizarre than somebody dying by spontaneously bursting into flames, Eric. And that would be somebody spontaneously bursting into flames and living to tell about it.
Who in the world could that be?
Well, that would be Vietnam veteran Frank Baker.
What happened to him?
Well, Frank Baker's one case of this happening. So Frank Baker says that Frank Baker, by the way, when I started looking into it, Frank Baker was one of the cases on that television show that I watched.
Okay.
So if you want to, follow the steps backwards, I'm sure you could figure out what the show was and what episode it was and see exactly what I saw that freaked me the hell out. But Baker says that he and his friend Pete Wiley were preparing for a fishing trip when Frank burst into flames.
No.
Baker says, we're getting ready to go fishing, sitting on the couch. Everything was great. He continues. Pete was sitting next to me. We were having a hell of a time. Helluva spelled Helluva in the quote.
Nice.
And this is when Frank burst into flames. He said that he and Pete started to freak out, understandably. They leapt to their feet and tried everything they could do to put the fire out. Frank says that he, quote, had no idea what was happening to my body. Frank and Pete were able to put the flames out, and they seeked out medical attention. Frank claims that the doctor told him the strangest thing about the entire case was that he seemed to burn from the inside out.
Oh, no.
I do want to note that the doctor has never been named, and nobody's ever come forward. So there's that tidbit. But Frank claims it happened.
But, I mean, was there any evidence?
No, he wasn't. He was perfectly fine. There were no burns, not even a blister.
All right.
No, I don't know. I don't know about the evidence. I don't know about the aftermath. I mean, I'm sure he had some kind of burn. Otherwise, the doctors would just tell him to get out of here.
But, I mean, there must have been, like, medical records that he provided to this TV show or something that proves that at least something happened.
Eric,
right?
I think you're overestimating how difficult it is to get on a television show. I think you could just slip right in there. If you have a crazy story. Hell, you were on 2 TV shows.
More than that, my friend.
Okay, there's one more survivor of spontaneous combustion I want to talk about. The problem is this survivor was not able to tell their story.
What happened?
Well, in 2013, all right, you're going to have to bear with me here. In 2013, Rajeswari Karnan, an Indian woman, admitted her son to a local hospital to seek treatment for burns she claimed were caused by spontaneous human combustion. Her son, Raul Eric, was only 9 days old.
Oh, my God.
Raul was discovered lying in his crib on fire by a neighbor who heard the child screaming. Raul's pediatrician, Professor R. Jayachandran, that's it, Jayachandran, believes that the fire was caused by gases expelling through Raul's skin and thought that it may be a genetic condition, although Raul's older sister had never suffered any such incident.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, right?
But what's even crazier to me is, where was the mom at the time that this was happening? Why did the neighbor hear it and have to come running to the baby?
Well, that is fishy, isn't it?
Ah!
Eric, there's a picture of Raul.
Yeah, I just got it. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad. But things got worse for the Karnan family, Eric.
Oh, no, don't say that. What happened?
2 years after this happened, Rajeswari, Raul's mother, was back at the hospital with her now 10-day-old baby brother to Raul.
Oh, no.
His feet caught on fire while he was in the bathtub. The baby had burns over 10% of his feet and had to spend over a month in the hospital recovering.
Oh, this is crazy.
So that's 2 kids that have burst into flames on this woman. After the incident, the hospital was very hesitant to release the newborn back to the Carnan family.
Yeah, I would be too.
Hospital staff believed that the mother was suffering from a condition called
Munchausen.
What is it?
By proxy. Munchausen's by proxy.
Exactly. These so-called Munchausen's moms are mothers who harm their children to gain attention and sympathy.
Yeah.
So the doctors thoroughly examined the baby and stated that all the tests revealed he was perfectly normal. The parents had to go through psychiatric counseling, and they were found to be completely normal as well. No signs of the... What is it?
Munchausen's by proxy.
No signs of that. Unfortunately for the Carnans, they report that their community has ostracized them after the repeated burnings, and they are unwilling to believe that spontaneous combustion actually exists.
No. I mean, that's a tricky situation, though, because when
It's
you
very
have
tricky.
2 babies catching on fire,
Right,
you have
exactly.
to consider all possibilities.
And, to be fair, that was your first... you hinted at it as soon as you heard that the second kid had lit on fire. So
Yeah.
it is tricky. But at the same time, if that is what happened, if the parents had nothing to do with it, that's terrible for them to have to go through this and then have people believe they set their kids on fire.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff. So
Definitely.
the real question at the end of all of this is, I think, the most important question, and that's, is 10-year-old Paul right? Should you be worried at all times that you could just burst into flames?
I don't think so, because it's not common enough to really worry about it.
Well,
I mean, it could definitely happen to you, apparently, but
Yeah, I guess
I wouldn't
so.
be worried about it.
Yeah, for the most part, the answer is no. There are fewer than 150 cases of spontaneous human combustion that have been reported over the last 2,000 years.
Jeez Louise.
This is one of the reasons that people are so skeptical when it comes to believing that it actually happens. So, you want my advice, Eric? My advice,
Not really.
My medical advice is drink a lot of water,
Boring.
eat a lot of ice cream,
Oh, okay.
and don't become an elderly woman who has a chronic alcohol problem and also smokes.
Okay, well, I'm already halfway there.
Which half?
That's for me to know and you to find out. The bottom half, Paul. The bottom half.
Okay, all right. Smoking problem and a little bit of alcohol.
No.
No. All right. Well, I'm stumped. Okay. Well, the other thing you could do is just keep a fire extinguisher around you at all times, or maybe I don't know.
You should have one in your home at all times anyway.
Drink some of it. You think that would
What?
help?
No,
Like if the
Paul,
fire's-
that would kill you.
Well, if it's starting on the inside, if it's the intestine thing, like we talked about, wouldn't you want to drink some of the fire extinguisher juice?
Yeah, Paul, do that.
Okay, that's
Do
it,
not
Eric.
try this at home,
Don't drink fire extinguishers.
please.
Public service announcement.
That's right.
Okay, that's all I have on spontaneous combustion. What do you think, Eric?
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I don't think anybody
I'm
likes
not
it.
a fan.
Not
all
a
the-
fan of
all those
spontaneous
poor
combustion.
babies. I
The
feel bad
baby's
for those
tough, man. The
babies.
baby's tough to see.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Well, at least he lived, you know. At least
he
they
lived, and as far as I know, he's doing fine. I don't think he's set on fire since then. So,
I hope not.
so that's it, guys. If spontaneous human combustion gave you goose pimples, do us a favor and just tell a friend.
Thank you.
Another thing you could do to help us out is the server that hosts our podcasts. They are basically helping podcasts get advertising now, and in order to do it, we just have to have a couple people fill out these. What the hell's the word, Eric? Why can't
Survey.
Well, it's
Form.
the word is survey, but what's demographic surveys? Wow. So if you go to our Facebook page, there's a link there. You can click it. It seriously takes like maybe 20 seconds to fill this survey out, and it would be
That's not long at all.
greatly appreciated. We also want to tell you to check out paraboxmonthly.com. Parabox is great. It's an awesome service.
Well, what is it?
It's great shirts that you get each month. They know
everybody
what it is,
needs
Eric.
shirts.
I talked about it earlier in the podcast before you were here. And then if you could scroll down on your podcast app to the bottom of the Goose Pimples page and just give us a review and a rating, that would be awesome. You guys are the best. If you want to contact us, you could do it at goosepimplespodcast@gmail.com. And other than that, I don't know, Eric. There's social media. You can see us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, hit us up on Facebook. Tell us about your stories. Maybe you can come on our show.
Maybe.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, well, it's been nice chatting with you, Paul. I'll see you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.